In this session, we're going to turn our space objects into walls. In order to do that, we need to create some wall styles. So that's one of the first things we'll be doing. Right-click on your viewport, choose Edit Design Layer, and that takes us back to our first floor plan. If you have a look, you might notice that it would be really good if we put a veranda in this area, because this is going to be a sunny area. It doesn't want to be too big, but we can make a change. If you make a change to that space object, when we return to our viewport, you'll see that it's changed here as well. You might be hard for you to see it, but just in this corner here there's a new little veranda. It won't show in the plan because that's showing the upper floor anyway. So right click, back to our design layer, and now we're going to create some walls. Building shell toolset, and let's have a look at our wall tool. Because we've used this previously in earlier exercises, now what we need to do is to create some components. We haven't used components before because I just showed you an easy way to draw walls. Now we're going to look at components. We're going to start off with a plaster component. And we want to put this plaster component on its own class. Now we don't have any classes for this just yet, so let's create some new classes. New. So let's start off by calling it wall, then the component, then plaster. And I'm just going to copy this portion here because we're going to use this bit again. So copy that. We could, if we want to, edit the properties after creation and choose the graphic style that we want. So for this particular part, we might want to have a pale grey line. We might want to have some kind of hatch for that. There might be some sort of stipple hatch that we might want to use, and so on. So I'm just going to give it a pale grey fill. What sort of line weight do we want? Well, not too thick, not too thin. We want it to stand out a little bit, but not as much as the wall in the middle. When you click OK, you come back to the wall component settings. We'd like to control the fill using the style, and the color also using the style. The left pen controlled by the style, the thickness by the style, and the color also by the style. So do that for all of them. We're going to use classes to control all of our graphics for this wall. Here we get to choose the actual class. So you don't have to choose the class through the texture if you don't like. You can choose it here, and we're just going to choose a simple texture. We chose the carpet earlier on, but what I really want is some sort of nice stucco, and here it is. I found it. That's the stucco that I want to use. Let's just put in our thickness. It's around about an inch, 25 millimeters. It's relative to my wall. So we're using our wall to control this plaster. It's only sticking on the face of the wall. It's not going below the wall or anything like that. And if I want to, I can create master snaps. I'll show you the master snaps later on, but they're really good, and I would stick them on the structural part of the wall. This is only the cladding on the outside. So when you're ready, click OK, and now we can create our structural component. So this is my structure. It needs a class. So let's create a new class for that. Wall. Now we should have copied what we had earlier on, so we should be able to paste that in, and that should speed us up. Again, we're going to edit the properties after creation. So let's have a look. We're going to use creation. We want this to be a hatch. We want to choose a nice concrete sort of hatch, or sort of brick or blockwork hatching, something that shows that it's cut through in sections. So one of these sort of default hatches. It may not be the perfect hatch for you, so you might have to choose one that suits you. What sort of line style do we want? We want it solid, we want it black, but this time we want it to be reasonably thick so it looks like a solid wall. So it's relative to the wall top, relative to the wall bottom. Now we want master snaps. Now the idea of a master snap is that when you've got walls with components, you really want to make it easy to snap to a particular component of your wall. Well, the structural part is the part we really need to dimension, not the plaster. So if we turn on master snaps, it'll make it so much easier for us to dimension our walls. Class style there, color by class, class thickness, class style, class thickness, and color by class. Now there's no texture on this because we're going to put a cladding on the other side as well. Don't forget the thickness, it's about 8 inches, 190 millimeters, and then click OK. So we've now got our outside cladding, we've got our solid structure, and we've got our inside cladding that we want as well, our rendering inside. One of the tricks you can do is to select the outside plaster, duplicate it because that's got all the right colors, line weights, textures, and so on. And then where that number 2 is, you'll see my cursor changes shape. Just click and drag that down, and it's now got plaster on the outside, structure on the middle, and plaster on the inside. The inside plaster might be a different thickness. It might only be 15 millimeters thick, and so you notice it's easy to create a copy and then make a change to it. So that's given us a lot of options. Let's have a look at our insertion options. When we create this wall, what do we want to happen? We want this wall to be bound to the finished floor of the floor above. So let's just scroll up and see if one of those is there. Finished floor of the story above, this wall will automatically be connected to that floor above. There's no top offset, but if we wanted to set this wall down a little bit for the structure, we could certainly do that. What about this one? Bottom bound, allow elevation, perfect. Our class, this is a new wall, so let's put it on a new class. Wall new, so that we can turn off existing walls or proposed walls, or if we're doing a renovation project, we've got a class to control new walls and existing walls. Our textures, we should be using our component textures. We've gone through the trouble of putting textures on all of our components, we should use that. And finally the data. So you might put in here information that describes this wall. It might be a 190 millimeter block wall with plaster. What about description? We'll describe it fully. So it's got render on the outside, it's got block wall on the inside, it's got reinforcing in it, it might have insulation in it. Put in a very good description of this wall. Now I'm not going to do that because I haven't got time to do that, but it's a really good idea to fill this in, because later on, if you're asked to export this wall as part of an IFC project, which we use for sharing our BIM model with other people, the information you type here will be attached to the wall and will travel with that wall. It's exterior, it's load bearing. When you've filled in the correct description, don't forget to say that it's exterior and that it's load bearing. Then save your preferences as a wall style. This is really important because this will save your wall that you can use on many projects. So it's a 190 millimeter external blockwork wall. Click OK, click OK again, and now we can start drawing. There's a couple of different ways to draw with this technique. We can use our wall tool and we can trace around the outside. We can also select our space, go up to AEC on the menu bar, space planning, and we can create walls from spaces. And then we can choose how we want to do this. So we can create walls from our selected space only. Our source layer is floor 2, it's the one we're currently on. Our destination is floor 2, along the inside of spaces. Or if you want, you can go along the outside of spaces so that the plane that you've created is only the inside walls. So our wall style, and then click OK, and you can see it's created our wall straight away. Now it's missed out this corner here because it didn't calculate that little bit. So we will have to come back to our wall tool. We can draw that wall there and there. But this does give me an opportunity to talk about wall joining again. We're going to use our corner joint. We're going to join that wall to there and that wall to there. So that gives us the start of our plan. If we select all of those walls, let's just go up here and make sure we're going to select objects. So we could select all of those walls, just the walls. We could then go copy, Control C, and then we could go to the next layer up, floor 3, and we could paste. So let's go to Edit on the menu bar, Paste in Place, And there's our plan from below. Now obviously it doesn't quite match because of the things that we want to do, but it just gives you an idea. But one of the things to watch out for when you do this is that because we've used the finished floor of the story above, it doesn't exist, so we can't use that. We need to use our layer wall height for that wall to give us the correct height. It should really be about 3.5 meters, and that'll take it up to the correct height. So if you've got walls that we don't need, we could delete them, and then we can just join our walls together using our wall join tool. So that wall to there and that wall to there. So it's now giving us a part of our design. If we have a look at our right click, our layer options, let's show, snap others, and now you can see our building starting to take shape. We haven't got any foundations yet, so how about we look at our foundations and create some foundation walls. That was floor 1 if you remember. And now I only want to look at our active walls. So this was our foundation plan. I'm going to paste in place again. So edit, paste in place. Now this time our walls need to be changed. Let's go back to our wall style. You might remember we needed to create some foundation walls. Let's have a look. So this is our external block work. We need to make some changes to this. So our insertion options are that the bottom bound of this is going to be the top of our footing. You might remember we created some levels that would control our footings and our foundation walls. So the bottom of the footing, not the story below, be careful for that. So the bottom of the footing. And now it's not going to the story above, it's going to the finished floor of the story. Other things should be the same, and now we can save this as a wall style. So this is a 190 foundation wall. Okay, let's have a look. 190 foundation wall. You will have to go through your data and check all of that. Click OK. Now we haven't yet assigned our foundation wall to this particular wall. Let's have a look in 3D. So I'm going to go to a right isometric, and now we're going to go and choose replace. And now we're going to replace this with our foundation wall. How are we going to do this? We want the center line of our existing wall to be the center line of our proposed wall. Well, that might work. What about the left side of our structure lines with the left side of our structure? Maybe that's a better way of doing it. And this foundation wall actually appears to have internal plaster, which we don't need. Do we want to replace the height, the class, the textures? Okay. And you notice our wall just changed. If we go back to that, you go, well, that wall's a little low. Shouldn't that wall have come all the way up to the underside of the floor above? Good point. So let's go back to our wall style and check that. Well, first of all, we don't need that plaster, so we can delete it. Our insertion options were set to the finished floor, but actually we do want that to go to the finished floor of the story above. Now, don't click OK just yet. We want to save this as a wall style. Now, because we haven't made any changes to the name, or we haven't okayed, it still remembers the name of the wall. If you click OK and come back to this, it won't remember the name of the wall. You'll have to type that in. And now we've got this option here. So the center line of the wall lines with the center line of the wall? No, because that will offset that wall ever so slightly. We want the left side of the structure to line with the left side of the structure, then click OK, OK, and now that should line up with the walls above. Now our spaces should really be on a class. If we use our visibility tool, we can change it to the invisible mode and we can turn off those spaces. If we look at our floor above, that lines up. So let's look at our show snap others, and let's make sure we can see all of our layers. So that looks okay, that looks okay. And now what we really need is some footings. You might remember we've got a copy of these walls here. Now we could use paste in place again, but before we do that, let's create our footing. So our footing doesn't need plaster, so we can delete that. And we don't really need that component, so we can delete that as well. and our footing is about 400 millimeters wide. Let's look at our insertion options. The top bounding is going to be the top of the footing, and the bottom bounding is the bottom of the footing. It's going on the wall new class. Maybe we need a new foundation wall for this. So let's create a new class, wall footing. That'll give us the ability to show the footings or not when we want to see them. So use it creation, it's solid, it might have a line type, sort of a dashed line, and it might have a light grey line. Okay, so it's on the class wall footing, bottom of footing, top of footing, that should be fine. And let's save that as a wall style and we'll call it 400 millimeter footing. Okay, okay again. And then click OK. So now when we paste in place, edit, paste in place, we can swap that wall to a footing wall. So now what we want to do is we want the center line of that structure to line with the center line of that structure, and we want that to be a footing wall. Okay, and let's send that to the back. So there is a modify, send to back, and I often use this keyboard shortcut, Control B. So now we've got the walls. Let's just check in 3D. Now it appears to me that that wall there is going to the bottom of the footing, which is wrong. If we go back to our resource manager and we find our foundation wall, right click, choose edit, we can go back to this and say the insertion option should be the top of the footing. Click OK. How do we want to replace it? Yeah, we're not changing the thickness, so we don't have to worry about this so much, but we are changing the height. And so now we should have our foundation wall sitting on top of the footing, and then the footing underneath it. So that's an easy mistake to make, but you can see how easy it is to correct it. If we return back to our viewport, there it is there. We're going to go to our classes on our viewport. We're going to make sure all our wall classes are visible. But we don't need to see our space anymore, so we can turn off our space class. This one's the same. Let's go back to our classes. We're going to turn off our space class, that's space main. And we're going to turn on all our wall component classes. We also have to do the same for these ones. So you could select both viewports. Go to classes, turn off the space. Now if you preview it, you'll see the spaces vanish. So then we can turn on our wall component classes, preview those, OK, and now our buildings are starting to develop. We do need to do our internal plan, so we can go back to our design layer and start working on that. It's really time to create the internal plan. Double click on the rectangle tool. Our first room might be our living room, 3600 wide, 3.9 meters high, with our box position set to the bottom left corner. Click down there and it places our first room. What about an entry space? Double click here. Our entry space might be about 1800 wide, 6 feet wide, 2200 deep. This time, set your box position to the top left, and that might be our position. Now if you want to rotate it or change it, you certainly can. The box position will stay there, so it might be that the room is 2200 wide, 1800 high. Just to give you some ideas about where you're going to place your rooms, that's all. We might need a dining room. Let's say the dining room's about 3.6 wide meters and 3600 high as well. And you can just type in the dimensions and hit enter twice. We need some room for stairs. The stairs are going to be quite wide, about 3 meters by about 2.5 meters for the room. So we need about 3M for that width. Tab, 2.5M for that room. Enter. Enter again. Now we need a kitchen of some sort. The kitchen might be 4.2 2 meters wide, and it might be about 3 meters high. And then we need some form of bathroom area just in here. So that gives us the start of our plan, and you can see now that our walls don't match this very well. But it's easy to drag these walls around. You can just drag that wall down to there. That'll move that wall where we want it. We've got another wall underneath here. If you hold down the B key, you'll see that wall. There it is there. You can drag that wall to there as well. We can drag this wall. Again, hold down the B key and drag that wall out to there. And just make sure that your walls are touching the outside of your rectangles. You might be thinking that we created these spaces for nothing. So there's a space we created. Why don't we use our reshape tool, this one here, and we can reshape that space to suit that first rectangle that we've got. And now I'm going to remove some of the points that I don't want. So that point, that point, that point, that point, and then just move that last handle across, and there's our space. This underneath here, that's our handle for our space. We can move that handle so it's back onto our living room. And you might be wondering, what's the point of having rectangles rather than spaces? Well, we're going to convert these into spaces because it's going to be a good idea to leave them as spaces while we build our plan and move our plan around. Because later on, when we come to do our room finishes, we'll be able to use these spaces for our room finishes. Right click, create objects from shapes, and those will be spaces. I'm going to delete the custom room name and click OK. Now we haven't set up them to auto number, but this is going to be our dining. So the space name, dining room. This is our kitchen, space name, kitchen. This is our stairs, and if we don't have a stair name, we can add one. Just have a look. There's a stair. This is our entry, and this is a bathroom. Let's call it a bath. So we can number the spaces if we want. So now let's start to move these walls around. Let's grab that wall by the edge and bring it into there. I'm going to move that wall up, and there's another wall hiding underneath here. Hold down the B key, and there's our wall. So what we'd like to do is move that wall up to there, and now we need to create some other walls that are the same. You might notice in that case I didn't get the inside face of my wall to touch that space. So what we need to have is a system that will allow us to create extra walls easily. If we put our finger on our Control key plus Alt key, or on a Macintosh, Command plus Option, you'll get this new cursor. Click on that, and now I can create new walls. I can use the U key once, U key again. Click there, double click there. I need a wall that goes around here, so click there, there, double click there. I need a wall that goes down here, click, and double click. So now let's join our plan together using our wall join tool. We can use our corner joint, so join from there to there, from there to there. That wall joins from there to there. You might need to zoom in to get that to work. And there's our new exterior plan. Now we need some interior rooms, which means we need another wall style. So let's go to our external blockwork wall style. Let's look at our wall preferences, and we're going to change this. So this is going to be an internal wall. So first of all, the structure is not going to be as thick. It may only be 150 or 120 millimeters. Also going to put master snaps left and right on that. We're going to change that plaster, and we're going to make that 15 millimeters. So we've changed this wall. Let's save this as a wall style. So this is not a 190 external block. This is a 120 internal blockwork wall. Now because we made a copy of the wall style that was here already, things like the insertion options are still there, the textures should still be there, and the data should still be there. So don't forget to change that. Save preferences as wall style, make sure it's got the same name, and then OK. So now we can start to put in our internal walls. How are we going to do that? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. There are some situations where this trick will work better than others. So for example, if I create a wall from there to there, you notice it's on top of the existing wall. If we go back to our quick preferences and have a look at our auto join walls. Now, if you don't know where to find your quick preferences, it's always here on the right hand side of the toolbar, and there's an auto join walls option there. At the moment that auto join is not activated. If I activate that and do exactly the same wall style I had before, you'll notice that it auto joins the wall, but unfortunately what it's done, it's pulled my exterior wall in. So I can't use that just at the moment. So I'm going to have to go back to this wall style. I'm going to draw down the center line of the wall from there, and I'm going to stop there. This wall wants to come off the left side. So from here it's going to go up to the left side, and this one wants to come down the right side. So now I've got an issue. What do I do with my design? I'm going to have to make some changes to that. I'm going to go back to the center line, or I could go back to the left side, draw from here up, from there up to there, and I might want to wall across here, so maybe there's a wall across there as well. If I hit the U key again, so that might give me the opportunity to join these together. Back to my wall joining, join that wall to there, and you can see it's not a neat join. So what do I need to do? Maybe this wall here needs to move across so that that wall runs all the way up. So let's take that wall all the way up to there. And then we can grab the inside of that wall there. And I can move that wall across till it lines up with there. And now my space is the wrong size. If I double click on it, I can then edit the space. I should be able to drag that corner, or I can use the edge mode, pull that in, and pull that up. So there's my kitchen. Let's finish joining our walls. So now the T-joint method, so join from there to there, join from there to there, that one goes to there, and I've got the start of my walls. So we've changed our plane downstairs quite a lot. We need to make sure that the floor above is going to line up with this now. So let's change our layer options to Gray Snap Others. Let's go to our floor above, and you can see there's a huge difference here. So I'm going to need to move these walls around quite a lot. So the outside of this wall, so Z key or Z key to zoom in. Do that again, make sure you're touching the outside of that wall. And this one also needs to change. Now remember, the dining room had a balcony underneath here, a veranda, so we either need to extend that room out to put the veranda in, or we're going to need to do something else. And it's a question of what you want your design to be. Remember, the cars are down here, so we'll need a column to support this, and we need to put a balcony out here as well. We could wait till the stairs go in and finish our design, but I'm going to use that Control Alt again, or Command Option again. I'm going to create my exterior wall there, and I'm going to create it up the side as well, so the Z key to zoom in. Now this wall is not going to be in the right place. I'm going to need to split that, and you can use your split tool with this. Split that wall anywhere, and then I can use my join to join that wall to there. Just make sure I'm in the corner mode. Now this wall is not drawn correctly, so I'm just going to drag that down, and I'm going to draw that again. So remember the quick keyboard shortcut, and then I can join those together. So corner, join that wall to there, and that wall to there. So that gives me my overall plan. And it might be that when we do the upstairs, design, it might be that we fill that area in. We're going to wait for the stair to come up before we do that. We've still got some design work to do downstairs, because one of the things we're going to do is to have some stairs that come through here. And you might find that there's some things that you need to change. So let's just pull that wall back a little bit. This wall here might come down to here somewhere, and upstairs we're going to put a veranda on top of this. So the supporting wall for upstairs is going to follow that line. So we might need to play with that. We might need to give this one a little bit more room. And when you do that, don't forget that you're also going to have to make changes to your foundation wall. So down here we're going to move that top wall out to there. There's our footing wall there. We're going to move the footing wall from its center to that center there. And we might pull that back because we probably should have our footing go around this area to support that part of the building. That's our space. So let's just hide the space temporarily. We'll use the visibility tool for that. So we'll just hide that space there. This wall needs to come back, and that one also needs to move back to there somewhere. You might notice that the wall doesn't support this particular wall above, so start to make sure that these are supporting each other. That one goes to there. I'm going to use it from that line to there. That looks better. And my center there goes to the center there. Remember, you can use your Control plus Alt or your Option plus Command if you're on a Macintosh, and you can create additional walls. So that's going to be U key there. So that's my footing through there. There's another wall through there that I need to create that one. That one's going to be using that face. Draw along there. I just need to push that up so it's on the face there. Just make sure you're using the correct wall style for those. If that's block work. If you use the technique with the Option plus Command or the Control plus Alt, then you never end up with the wrong wall style. You always end up with the correct one. That should go the other way, go from that direction, U key again. So they need to line up. There's another one through here, there's another one through there. And don't forget your footings. So once you've got those, let's go back to active only. We can see all those. Remember, we're going to use that quick create again. We're going to go to that midpoint, U key. And so we've got our walls. Now we can join those together. Using our corner joint mode, making sure we join all of those. Then we can join that wall to there. So it's a wall underneath there. Maybe it's easier if I go send to back, right click, send to back, so I can see that wall. So that wall is going to join from there to there, and from there make sure you're highlighting the right one. So I've updated my foundations. Now we go back to our floor. Grey snap others. Make sure we can see the other floor. So they start to line up. That's good. Now we can go to the upper floor. Make sure they're lining up. Now we want that wall. So the face of that wall lines with the face of that wall. That's going to be my veranda. There might be another veranda upstairs as well. I might put another one out here. And there's a veranda underneath here. If you want this floor to also have a veranda, don't forget to leave that area. And then we just need to draw some internal walls around here. Don't forget, you could easily use your rectangular drawing mode. Draw on the inside face of the wall from that corner down to here. Just make sure you've got the right wall style, not the footing. We need to be doing our internal block wall. So from there down to there. So that'll create one of our walls for us. We might have a walkway going through here. We might have another area through here. I just need to turn on my auto join walls for the next step. I'm going to use the technique where Vectorworks will use the auto join for me. So I can choose where I want to stop and start my walls. It'll join those together. I've got some more walls to go in here. I think there's another wall that goes from there to there. And then I can probably finish off by putting in some extra walls. So let's go back to our polygon wall technique. This is going to be an ensuite upstairs. I'm going to use the U key again. There's a wall through here as well. There's going to be an extent. That wall's going to extend down to there. This wall and that wall will join together, so I could I could just use my wall join tool. So those are joined together. I want to use the T-joint now. We're going to join that wall to there. So that gives us our upstairs plan. Now let's go back to our site model and see what our site model is like. We're going to go active only. Now you might remember that we have our design layer viewports here. They're a copy, so I can just delete one. But right now we might want to check our layers, make sure all our layers are visible. That's it, third floor, second floor, first floor. Let's look at our classes, because we can see our spaces, but we can't see any of our walls. So turn on your wall classes. We've turned off our space class, that one. And let's preview it. Okay. Now we can turn that view in 3D and have a look at it. And you can start to decide whether you want your houses to be that orientation or whether you want to rotate them 90 degrees. So I'm just going to make a copy, select them both, and then right click, rotate left 90 degrees, and then maybe relocate those two buildings. It might be, for example, that it's better to have one building back here so that you've got room for the cars to circulate. Totally up to you. Remember to use your solar study to help you design the layout.